Welcome to the Find My New Life podcast. I'm Christopher Lapine, spiritual liberation author and speaker. This podcast brings you inspiration, hope, and answers for how to live a modern, God-centered spiritual life. It will help you have a more direct, deeper experience of God, find more happiness, and live your incredible God-given destiny. You can find all my podcasts, as well as videos, books, and more at findmynewlife.com. So, let's get started with today's show. Hello, I'm Christopher Lapine. Welcome. Hey, this is the first podcast. This is podcast number 1 of the Find My New Life podcast. And today is Friday, November 11, 2022, as I'm recording this. In today's episode, I'll talk a little bit about these podcasts in general, and also the topic of how to find spiritual power to change yourself. What are the real keys? How can you strengthen yourself, supercharge yourself, and just keep getting that momentum for personal change and happiness and progress? That's what today's topic is really all about. It's simpler than we think, but it's also a bit harder than we think. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but I'm just very happy to be speaking to you, to be connecting with you, whatever your spiritual journey. And I really wish you the best on that journey. We all come from different perspectives, different backgrounds. You may have a Muslim background, you may have a Hindu background, Christian, Jewish, whatever the background is, that we're all on this spiritual journey together. And I think the most important thing is that we keep open hearts and we're really seeking to serve others and find the truth. Find the truth about God, find the truth for our lives, our destiny. And that's what makes it thrilling, because God does not operate a factory. We're not being stamped out. We're not being forced to do something. We're not little parts coming off a line. There's really, when you think about the universe, it's so vast, it's so gigantic, and it's really going to be the future adventure for us, the playground. And actually, I shouldn't say really future, because we're here now and we're part of the adventure already, and that unfolds in our lives. But I don't know about you, but sometimes I just get ground down. I have a full-time job in addition to doing this, and I'm sure everybody else does. And sometimes I don't know about you, but I just lose track of it. I wake up in the morning and I know what I've got to do for the day. That's the top of my mind. And so I go out and I start doing it. I make lists. It's as simple as just starting that morning routine. I typically, as I get going, maybe I'll get a cup of coffee, maybe I usually get breakfast, but once I take that first step into that and get going, I'm already starting to use energy up. And then once I get on the job, start working with my coworkers, start facing problems, dealing with stress, then I don't know about you, but I can just feel the energy being drawn off me. I start to get tired, just like some kind of athlete or something. So that's a challenge, and I'm sure you face similar challenges. Just think about it for a second. What do you do when you get up? What's energizing you, and what is really drawing on your batteries? What's drawing your batteries down? Just take a second to think about that. And today, I think it's a lot more demanding than it ever has been. I know we're all trying to deal with, we're all trying to process the complications and the events in today's world. There's a lot of strife, there's a lot of pain, but there's also a tremendous amount of complexity. If we went back 100 years, 200 years, life is simpler. I wouldn't say it was easier, but to get through your day, it was not as complex. We have remarkably complex modern environments, societies, so many choices. Just think about it. Think about all the screens that are in your life. Think about how you are accessing this podcast. Maybe on a laptop, a desktop computer, a phone. There are just a variety of media that are coming at us. We've got images, we've got sound, we've got the combination in video. And then you've got mail, email, paper mail. It goes on. So all of these things, I think, also impact your energy. They draw down your energy. I like to think of it as, being a spiritual athlete, and we're all, we are on this spiritual journey. So we need to take care of ourselves as athletes. So I want to introduce today, and it's really the core of what I'm going to talk about, but I want to introduce a way that you can recharge. That's proven, it works. It's known, I think, to most people who've had deep spiritual lives and have been able to recharge. And we know that we just can't do it alone. I think that's obvious. If we're spiritual seekers, we know that. We can't. We need friends. We need God. We need our spirit within. We can't do it alone. And when we try to do it alone, we hit brick walls, we get exhausted, we get tired, we get bored, apathetic. We begin to just shut down and cruise along in the world. And sometimes that's comfortable, but it's not living, it's not being awake. Because the more we live, the more we're conscious of our decisions, the more we're thinking about how we can improve the world during the day, and just the more joy and happiness we have. We truly have tremendous destinies that God already has planned for us, and we get to be, we're given goals, we're given this incredible cosmic destiny, and it's gradually revealed to us as we can handle it. And we get to take part or not. So that's really what it's about, is getting the energy to be part of that destiny. I mean, even if you feel really inspired and you feel like you have a vision and clear direction, then it gets down to making sure that you have enough energy every day to keep going. If you're an athlete, if you're training, you know that you've got to use the right techniques. Of course, you're eating the right foods. You're eating them at the right times, in the right amounts. You're taking care of your body in other ways. The stretches, the conditioning, the monitoring of your body, and you've got the right mental attitude as well. You're visualizing, you're going through. So it's a gradual process of continuing to improve, to build in those habits. Okay, so what I want to share with you is just a very focused way to bring in that energy, that strength, that nourishment every day. I wrote a blog a while back, and I'm just going to read that blog to you first, and then comment on it a little bit later. So here's the blog. It's called "Find Spiritual Power to Charge Yourself." In my spiritual studies, I've looked at the essentials for spiritual rebirth. You need wholehearted faith to believe that, number one, God is in charge. Number two, you are a child of God. And three, that doing the Father's will is the key to happiness and eternal progress. So that's really the foundation. Those are the essentials. If you're thinking about progress, if you're thinking about having a true, intimate experience of the divine, of God, you need to wholeheartedly believe 100% that God's in charge. You got to trust. Absolutely. Number two, that you are a child of that creator of the universe. And that following the Father's will, following the guidance of God, is going to bring happiness and eternal progress. Now, to believe those things it's not something you figure out. It's not something that takes a lot of intellectual discussion or research or reading. It's not at all. It basically the process of belief is turning your face toward the light and saying to yourself, I see the light. Belief is the process of accepting reality. And the reality that we're accepting is the reality within. So when you spend time there repeatedly, you are going to come to the conclusion. This thought is going to come in your head. God is in charge. Nothing you have to figure out. It's just a thought. So embrace it, believe it, accept it. Then the other thought is, I'm a child of God. And that this God has a plan for me. There is a divine will. There's a desire for me to do something to be happy and contribute. Those are thoughts that will come into your head, hopefully, or assurances, and you'll know. If you wholeheartedly want to know, those things will come through. So those three facts, those three core truths become the foundation of everything. They become the foundation of how to find that spiritual power. This is just the beginning. That all sounds fine, but once you do this is not enough. That may sound hard to believe, but simply believing those three key truths is not enough. They enable you to open the door for more truth and growth, but while you are trying to follow your divine leading, while you are trying to know and do the will of the Father, you need nourishment. And since we have a mind, a body, and a soul, we need to take care of all of them. I talked about this a little bit before, the stresses of modern life. We all know it, we all feel it, and it's a challenge for everybody. And there's a really interesting example of an analogy of how just a little bit of the right ingredient can make an absolute tremendous difference. It's astounding. It really is. I think the first one is kind of a funny one, and I don't know if you've seen it, but you can Google it or search for it on the internet, but search for Mentos and Diet Coke. And these videos came out years ago where you take a large container of Diet Coke, you take a Mento candy, you drop it in and run because there's a tremendous reaction and all of this energy is released and it expands and a giant fountain of soda comes shooting out the top of this thing just by the chemical reaction. I don't know how it works, but it's fun. But another analogy, which is probably more accurate, is the process of strengthening iron. So think, so we're trying to strengthen ourselves, and a little bit of the right ingredient will do the trick. So there was the process of manufacturing steel. Now, just as ordinary pig iron is transformed into the remarkable material of steel by just 2% carbon mixed in, we can be transformed into better people by adding the ingredients of nourishment. Again, even though you may make sound decisions, even though you set your heart on a goal, it will be impossible to reach unless you provide food for mind, body, and soul. When you start to try to do the will of the Creator, you are using up real energy, just as your body uses up energy every day and needs food, water, exercise, good hygiene, and rest. So in that process of pig iron, again, there you've got, visualize it from you're at a mining site, and iron ore is being removed. And it's still mostly, when it's mined, it's still mostly dirt, really. And through a refining process, the actual iron element is extracted, and then it goes through a steel mill plant operation, and you've got it melted, and you've seen those big glowing pots, amazing videos, and now it's still not as strong as it could be. And the ingredient of that 2% carbon makes all the difference, because there's now a new strength. There's now a new connection within the pig iron. It permeates it. It's mixed in that process. So this is really something that we can do to change our lives in a spiritual way. So here, I'm not suggesting that, of course, I'm not suggesting that the way to spirituality is to visit a steel mill, but that's the analogy. So think about it this way. When I look at times I run out of steam, when I think about how I was making progress, then got off track or sad, it's because I was neglecting my personal garden of growth, spiritual growth. It takes sustained, very substantial effort to change, to do great things, to realize your spiritual dreams and goals. So we must provide the foundation, a balanced foundation. Here's a quote from the Urantia book. "It is to the mind of perfect poise, housed in a body of clean habits, stabilized neural energies, and balanced chemical function, when the physical, mental, and spiritual powers are in triune harmony of development, that a maximum of light and truth can be imparted with a minimum of temporal danger or risk to the real welfare of such a being. By such a balanced growth does man ascend the circles of planetary progression one by one from the seventh to the first." Pretty cool. It's that foundation, that steady foundation. We're not seeking rapid change, spectacular change, miracles, visions. Steady growth, steady, stabilized. In addition, the Urantia book states these habits in another way. Religious habits of thinking and acting are contributory to the economy of spiritual growth. One can develop religious predispositions toward favorable reaction to spiritual stimuli, a sort of conditioned spiritual reflex. Habits which favor religious growth embrace cultivated sensitivity to divine values, recognition of religious living in others, reflective meditation on cosmic meanings, worshipful problem solving, sharing one's spiritual life with one's fellows, avoidance of selfishness, refusal to presume on divine mercy, living as in the presence of God. The factors of religious growth may be intentional, but the growth itself is unvaryingly unconscious. So, those are just a sampling of things that we can do, those spiritual habits that provide that foundation. So when we take care of our entire beings, we nourish ourselves. Then and only then can we give our utmost to others. We certainly shouldn't wait until we think we have perfect habits of nourishment, because if we did that, we wouldn't be growing. Spiritual growth depends on nourishment and exercise. Each grow as the other grows. They are commensurate. So you grow in the way you nourish yourself, and then you use that in exercise. And once you've exercised more, you've increased your capacity to grow more, to be nourished more. You can't have one without the other, but we begin with charging up the spiritual batteries. That's the key. It's charging the spiritual batteries. It's no different. We live in a physical world. We're using up real energy, and making spiritual decisions. To make a spiritual decision, you need power. when you make the decision, you are opening your heart and you're reaching for that nourishment, for that strength, and it comes to you. And once you've made the decision, you've used up some spiritual power. When you make it again and again, you use it up. You're also using emotional power and physical. So it's all being drained down. But the good news is that there's an inexhaustible supply for you. And also, every time you even just attempt to do something, every time you try, you are increasing your ability to absorb that energy, and it's more likely that you're going to do it again. So you're building this really great habit. But it takes a tremendous amount to go through life and do this. So there is a writer in the Urantia book, Rodin of Alexandria. And so I want to give you this quote from the Urantia book from Rodin of Alexandria. He lived in the time of Jesus. And this is what he had to say. The effort toward maturity necessitates work, and work requires energy. Whence the power to accomplish all this? The physical things can be taken for granted, but the Master has well said, man cannot live by bread alone. Granted the possession of a normal body and reasonably good health, we must look next for those lures which will act as a stimulus to call forth man's slumbering spiritual forces. Jesus has taught us that God lives in man. Then how can we induce man to release these soul-bound powers of divinity and infinity? How shall we induce men to let go of God that he may spring forth to the refreshment of our own souls while in transit outward, and then to serve the purpose of enlightening, uplifting, and blessing countless other souls? How best can I awaken these latent powers for good which lie dormant in your souls? One thing I am sure of, emotional excitement is not the ideal spiritual stimulus. Excitement does not augment energy. It rather exhausts the powers of both body and mind. Whence then comes the energy to do these great things? Look to your Master. Even now he is out in the hills taking in power while we are here giving out energy. The secret of all this problem is wrapped up in spiritual communion, in worship. From the human standpoint, it is a question of combined meditation and relaxation. Meditation makes the contact of mind and spirit. Relaxation determines the capacity for spiritual receptivity. And this interchange of strength for weakness, courage for fear, the will of God for the mind of self constitutes worship. At least that is the way the philosopher views it. When these experiences are frequently repeated, they crystallize into habits, strength-giving and worshipful habits, and such habits eventually formulate themselves into a spiritual character, and such a character is finally recognized by one's fellows as a mature personality. These practices are difficult and time-consuming at first, but when they become habitual, they are at once restful and time-saving. The more complex society becomes, and the more the lures of civilization multiply, the more urgent will become the necessity of God-knowing individuals to form such protective habitual practices designed to conserve and augment their spiritual energies. So it's like I was discussing before. It's the demands of modern life. It's the challenges of modern life that are constantly using up energy. And because modern life is so complex, so stimulating, it's harder to carve out these times for spiritual growth. But any effort that we make, anything, begins to start the habit. So as you go and try to deepen your spiritual practices, It could be as simple as you get up in the morning and the first thing you do is you say thank you, or you just spend some time talking to God. That's it. And it might be 60 seconds. It doesn't matter as long as it's something, because that something will grow. You do it the next day, it grows a little more, it grows a little more, it grows a little more. So you may start off, maybe you're running to the bus, you're running to the subway, you're running to your car, you're just trying to get to work. You're working, whether it's in your home office, you're going to the shop, the field, wherever. You take that 60 seconds, you now have added a little bit more to your day, a little bit more energy. And the next day, you're going to be much more likely to remember and do it again. And maybe the next day, it's 2 minutes. I don't know. Maybe it's 60 seconds again. But as you do it, it just keeps growing if you keep it up. And it may seem at first like, oh, this is taking too much time. My day's too complex. I'm just going to get on with my day. But as you do it and you start to grow it, you'll discover that you're functioning at a higher level. You're making decisions more effectively. You've got the strength. And if you're stronger, things take less time. So it's actually time saving. It's kind of, imagine going through the day without having any food whatsoever. I know some people are breakfast people, morning people, and I'm one of those people. But, at some point in the day, you need food. And just imagine not having any food and going through the day. Just imagine, you're going on a road trip to another city. And, yesterday, your gas tank, you used up all the gas and you only had a gallon left in the tank. So now, okay, I want to drive 500 miles. So spiritually, that's what it's like. You wake up in the morning, you still have some energy, a little bit maybe from the day before. And at night, the Spirit of God is working in your mind to replenish you. But you have to take the next step to choose to pay attention when you're awake if you really want to get recharged. So not doing that is like now you're driving to that next city and your gas tank, you can maybe go 30 miles on a gallon of gas, maybe less. And if it's really, really stressful, if it's a stressful day, maybe you're going up a steep hill or there are lots of winds or you're towing something with your car, you're going to be using up even more energy. And then you're going to hit a wall and run out. And then you're just, you're stopped spiritually. So that's why anytime you can devote to it in the morning is time well spent and will save you time. It really will. It's not only that you get fuel, but the quality of that fuel. Rodin was talking about the relaxation. So if you let yourself be fully relaxed, you're going to be able to experience the Spirit of God more. And it gets back again to, as you're going through this whole experience, just keep accepting the thought that comes in your mind. Again, the key beliefs are, God is in charge, I am a child of God, and doing the Father's will is the key to happiness and progress. Doing God's will is the key to happiness and progress. And it's when we don't get recharged, it's when we don't give ourselves the balance of mind, body, and spirit. That's when we have issues. So the reason that so many times we falter, grow weak, or get off track is that we are not spending enough time with God in solitary meditation, prayer, and worship. What type of living creature or organism do we know of that can survive without nourishment? What group, institution, or nation can survive without worthy ideals, sound ideas, and the strength and determination to pursue them? In the end, all truth, progress is from our dedication from God. The imitation of God is the key to progress. and we must immerse ourselves in His presence to begin the process. You are a child of God with a limitless future and a limitless well of power and light. Think of all that you can accomplish. Think of all the people you can help. Think of the personal transformation that you can have. Think of doing the impossible. I'm thinking of issues I've dealt with for decades. I'm over 60 years old. So I can think of things of childhood. I've grown in so many ways, which is great. And because we have an eternal future, because you have an eternal future, you have endless growth and adventure ahead of you. God knows every decision you're going to make. He knows everything you're going to need for eternity. And He knows when you are capable of utilizing it. So everything you need is already arranged in eternity. So the moment you need something and you reach for it, it's already been arranged. It's there. And that's mainly spiritual nourishment. And it's a growth process. We can all look at things in ourselves that are challenges for, again, many, many years, issues, and we may think, how can I even change? How can I get over that? It's like, sometimes we think we're trying to thaw out a block of granite. And if we lose sight, if we forget about the power of God, then yeah. In fact, it is impossible to change without true spiritual power, true, lasting, invigorating change toward real happiness, real deep spiritual satisfaction, spiritual growth. It's only possible if we accept God within and accept that power and say, I want to grow. I'm going to try. I'm going to get nourishment every day. And that's the exciting point. There's a point at which we accept those truths within. We're reborn. We feel the joy. We feel the hope. Okay, that's step one. Step two is what we're talking about. Now that I'm moving on the journey, I got all excited about the journey, this big trip, this vacation I'm going to take, or this going to the next town. Okay, I accept it. It's great. Well, now, as you take that trip, you must prepare. You must make sure that you're getting nourished along the way. And that's really what this is about. When we think about the analogy with taking pig iron, taking that very simple element and adding 2% carbon, it makes all the difference in the world. You get steel. You get a remarkably strong material. Without that steel, that pig iron is brittle. That's the problem. So it's just like our lives. There's only so far we can go, and when we get that spiritual nourishment, then we're really unlocking unlimited growth. And it's not about speed, going fast, or making incredible, spectacular accomplishments every day. It's, we need to be satisfied with the gradual growth, with the gradual process. That's the nature of evolution. And it applies to the material area, and it applies to our spiritual selves. Everything that we accomplish is done by effort, exercise, and nourishment. And we cannot do it alone. The core of Jesus' teaching was that we are children of God. He loves us. He's going to give us everything we need, and that we're all brothers and sisters, and that by faith, by using our faith, by accepting, faith is acceptance, accepting what we're experiencing within, we are beginning to release all those spiritual treasures for the exercise. And the core of the teachings of Jesus are service. He taught a religion of service. So to realize all the fruits of the Spirit and the total joy to take part in that means you need to be nourished. You absolutely need to be nourished. But the good news is we have an inexhaustible supply of nourishment within. So that's my first podcast, everybody, on spiritual nourishment. On really the title of this one is "Find Spiritual Power to Change Yourself." This I could go on, and there's just a lot in it. So my next show will be coming up around November 19th. I'll be releasing these on a weekly basis. And I think the initial title of that one's going to be Getting Spiritual Perspective, not being too hard on yourself at the beginning of the spiritual journey. So I'll be looking forward to seeing you next time. You have a wonderful week, and I really wish you the best in beginning to build those spiritual habits or deepening the spiritual habit of nourishment that you already have. It's going to unlock so much. It's going to change you. So give it a chance. Take the time, go slowly, and watch yourself flower. You have a great week, and God bless you. Thanks for listening today. I hope it helped you on your journey. Go to findmynewlife.com for all my podcasts and much more. If you'd like to contact me with ideas or requests, use the Contact Me link on that website. I wish you the best on your spiritual journey. Remember, you are a child of God and we are family. You could claim an amazing destiny. See you next time.